So let's get started. Pervasive data collection. Show of hands, how many of you guys had heard the term pervasive data collection before today? Wow, I'm amazed. There are 5 people. All right, so to the point, every single time I mention the word pervasive data collection or the term pervasive data collection to someone, I get this quiz look. So it's only fair for me to slightly speak to what OSIsoft's pervasive data collection strategy implies. And simply put, OSIsoft's pervasive data collection, or PDC, the acronym, is a strategy to simplify the customer onboarding journey when it comes to collecting and aggregating data from a variety of disparate data sources across your organization. And to aid that effort, OSIsoft intends to provide you with all the products and technologies that you require to collect data from anywhere, regardless of the size, location, or complexity of the asset. So where does this stand in the context of an organization? A pervasive data collection strategy provides you with all the products that service your data ingress needs, regardless of the data source being a sensor, a gateway, a relational database, a messaging queue. Think of anything. We got you covered. Our PI system allows you to aggregate data from different parts of the enterprise and make this data available for your entire organization's needs. Whereas our OSIsoft Cloud Services allows you to expand your reach beyond the walls, should I say firewalls, of your organization and share this data through a community channel which a lot of people can consume this data and offer services, and you can leverage the service and expertise of this wider audience. So let's look at the composition of the products that make up this pervasive data collection suite. A strategy kicks off from close to home. It includes OSIsoft developed and supported PI interfaces and PI connectors. Moving along, we have our edge data store that serves the purpose of a historian at the edge. With all the buzz around IoT and the different use cases that our customers want to enable around the IoT scenario, we've also accounted for devices that are open source, sensors that are open source, and provide you with the technology to collect data from such devices using our OMF technology. So let's take a closer look at the first piece of the puzzle, PI interfaces and PI connectors. In a nutshell, these are OSIsoft developed solutions that provide an out-of-the-box connectivity solution for you to deploy and start collecting data instantly. For anyone who's not familiar with what a PI interface or a PI connector is, need not worry. I'll just get to that in a bit. But be assured that regardless of the technology you decide to go with, you have a great feature set in the form of flexibility when deploying it, cross-platform compatibility, robustness and reliability when collecting this data, and as I mentioned, most importantly, these are OSIsoft developed solutions, which means that you as a user and customer need to have zero in-house development experience to get started with these. So let's take a closer look at our PI interfaces. As things stand currently, we have over 400 different PI interfaces, which makes our PI interface technology the majority shareholder in our overall suite of products. Our PI interfaces have been around for decades. Thus, they offer a very robust and reliable solution when it comes to collecting data. Some of the more popular ones are OPC-DA, OPC-HDA, PI2PI, UFL, Modbus, and RDBMS. Let me speak a little bit to each of these interfaces because these interfaces have a wide adoption across our entire user community. OPC-DA and OPC-HDA are very popular industrial automation protocols, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this, have used these protocols in your existing use cases. OSIsoft offers interfaces for both these protocols to collect data from OPC-DA servers as well as historical data from OPC-HDA servers, and the interface solution we have out there is compatible with a large number of OPC-DA and HDA servers out there in the market. Thus, you can deploy the solution, and there's a very good chance the server you're using is going to be compatible with our interface. Pi2Pi allows you to enable use cases where aggregating data from remote sites and different parts of the organization and collecting all this data in a centralized single location is vital. Our RDBMS interface allows you to collect data from any relational database system that you have out there. Whereas the best analogy I can think of to describe our UFL interface is a Swiss Army knife, because it can actually collect data from n number of sources depending on the customization you put on your end to collect data. Last but not the least, we have Modbus suite of interfaces that allow you to collect data from a number of devices, be it daisy chained using RS-485 cables, or be it devices that are connected to your local Ethernet. We also have a couple of new interfaces in development. One is for collecting batch data from a Rockwell Pharma Suite manufacturing execution system. And a second one is to collect smart meter data. We heard about the smart meter use case in the keynote earlier today. We have an interface in the works to collect smart meter data from a Landis & Gyr head-end system it's called the command center. So you must be sat there wondering, well, interfaces allow you to gather data, and it basically services that use case. So what exactly is a Pi connector? Good question. Let me explain. Our Pi connectors is an evolution of our interface technology. It allows you to do tasks which required manual intervention with interfaces, like the tag creation, the configurations, the metadata creation. These were user-controlled tasks when working with interfaces. Our Pi connectors streamline and automate a lot of these workflows where it automatically creates tags and configurations and metadata information for you. A lot of the modern-day devices and systems allow you to discover its contents, thus putting very little onus on you as a user to know the exact location or address of the data points on the server. Our connectors take advantage of that functionality and allow you to automatically discover all the contents behind a certain device or a system just at the click of a button. And that drastically minimizes the startup time required for you to collect data. With growing organizations and growing connectivity needs across organizations, we acknowledge that flexibility and managing all these connectivity solutions is a big pain. And our Pi connectors offer solutions that allow you to achieve this flexibility when deploying connectors, while also managing all these solutions under a one-stop shop administrative product called the Data Collection Manager. So moving on, let's look at the two different flavors we offer today with Pi connectors. The first flavor is something called as a standalone Pi connector, which is basically a Pi connector without relay. And as you can see from this diagram, the connector piece essentially connects to your data source, captures, transforms, and sends the data directly to the Pi server. Simple enough. The second flavor we offer with Pi connectors is a Pi connector with a Pi connector relay, which consists of two individual components. A connector component, which connects to your data source, again, captures the data, transforms it, but instead of sending it to the Pi server, it sends it to this intermediary piece called the Pi connector relay, which then sends or fans this data to the Pi servers of your choice. This arrangement allows you to derive the flexibility when architecting your setup, while the encryption between the connector and the relay is done using certificates. Thus, it provides a very secure and flexible mechanism to transfer data. So let's quickly look at the Pi connectors available on the market today. At a quick glance, as you can see, our connectors are spread across a variety of industries. If you wanted to collect data from the edge, we have connectors in the form of Ethernet IP and HART IP. If you're an oil and gas customer and you wanted to collect data pertaining to your drilling operations or your upstream or midstream processes, we have connectors in the form of WithSML and Signet. With a lot of applications and products migrating towards the cloud, the need for data centers is ever so growing with every passing day. And thus, our connectors like IPMI and Redfish provide an out-of-the-box server monitoring solution for you. We also cater to the discrete manufacturing industry, and the connectors we built in the form of Siemens Numeric, Fanuc Focus, and MT Connect speak to that. And last but not the least, connectors such as OPC UA, UFL, Wonderware Historian, and Pi System Connector cater to a large number of industries and service a large number of use cases as well. Everything that is highlighted with an arrow next to it uses a connector relay and a data collection manager. We also have a couple of connectors in beta, so if anyone's interested in being a beta tester for these highlighted connectors, please come speak to me after this presentation. So you must be thinking, wow, that was a long list. But we aren't done yet. We intend on expanding our reach to more number of servers and data sources. And to aid that effort, as you can see, we have a lot of connectors in development. We also intend on navigating to industries or domains that are lesser explored, like facilities. And our commitment to our Tridium connector speaks to that. We also intend to reach to more edge devices, with the edge scenario being more and more pervasive across the industry. And our commitment to connectors like Modbus for Cisco IOX and MQTT Spark Plug is a testament to that as well. All right, so what else is new with Pi connectors? Since the last Pi World in Barcelona, we've taken some major strides in enhancing the functionality and improving the performance with our connectors. So let me highlight just a very few major wins. One of the major wins which happened in the last couple of months was we released a Pi connector for OPC UA that is certified by the OPC Foundation. What this means is that a Pi connector for OPC UA is now compatible with any server vendor out there that follows the OPC UA specification. We've also put in exhaustive efforts to improve the store forward logic when it comes to supporting Tier 2 servers on the Wonderware Historian. As I mentioned previously, we have a couple of connectors in beta right now, and a Pi connector for IEC 61850 and Pi connector for MQTT Spark Plug are options which use a relay. So if you think a relay is something which could come in handy for your use case, please come speak to me, and I'll be more than happy to discuss this further with you. And last but not the least, generally, we put in a lot of work to improve the performance and scalability of our connectors. Thus, the connectors that we release moving forward will be able to support larger data sets, while we heard your feedback, and a lot of you told us that you desire some form of control when it comes to tag naming and tag mapping. And we've taken that into account and addressed that as well. And if you'd like to hear more on these lines, please attend our Day 3 talk, Day 3 product talk, which is on Thursday at 2:30 p.m. So I'll leave you with this last slide, which speaks to the connectivity roadmap. Everything that you can see in the leftmost column under developing now is what I briefly spoke to right now, which essentially, to summarize, is us expanding our data connectivity reach and providing solutions that improve the usability and user experience and convenience for our customers. What we are considering next is on the lines of making our connectors more multi-platform compatible, lightweight and higher performant, and providing seamless solutions which allow you to write data to any OSIsoft end system, be it on the edge or be it at the cloud. And last but not the least, what we have or what we intend to get to as a long-term vision is enabling the remote operations monitoring scenario, where we intend to provide you insight into every possible remote asset you have across your organization, and making that experience much more manageable and deployable from an organization perspective. And with that, I invite Chris Feltz to come up on stage and tell us more about the edge technologies. Thank you.
Nice job, buddy. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Chris Feltz. I work on our product team. I work for Greg LeBlanc. You saw him speak today. So Abbas did a great job covering kind of our existing technology around data connectivity. I'll spend the next 13 minutes and 47 seconds talking about the new technologies and products that we're bringing to market that is going to help address some of these, call them edge or call them IoT use cases. So we saw this slide from Abbas. There's 4 things here, intentionally made to overlap. The 2 on the left are products. Those are interfaces and connectors that Abbas covered. Also what we call Edge Data Store, using the acronym EDS. You'll hear me say that. And then 2 new technologies. We've heard a little bit about OSIsoft message format. Pat mentioned that today, and we'll talk a bit in detail about that. And then our strategy around open source. So if some of you have been here in the past, you've heard us talk about these things. So hopefully, like we heard Mark Jeffrey say, consistency is good. So we'll talk about why there's products and technologies that mix. So you heard Pat say he doesn't like this term IoT, so I typically use the term edge, so I don't have to duck when Pat hears me say that word. But why there's 4 things? There's many edges, depending on what industry you're in, what kind of assets you use. The edge is typically, as we think about it, really anything outside the walls of your plant. So here's some examples. So we had that great talk from Bill Johnson, DCP midstream. You see that pipeline there? That's kind of his edge, right? And he mentioned that's the kind of his next target. But then also edge might be a skid that you have in your plant. It may not be something that's part of your main control system, but something it's autonomously operated. That's another example of an edge. So really what we're trying to do with these technologies is address, products and technologies, address all of these scenarios that aren't our typical way to get data today through connectors and interfaces, which is typically connectivity to your DCS, connectivity to your SCADA system. We want to be able to reach down and get data directly from these sensors or these types of remote assets. So how are we going to do that? So again, looking at this picture, again, consistency is nice. Why there's 4 things is we expect, 1, there's going to be a variety of data throughput needs that you're going to have. Again, all the way from a connector that you might deploy to talk to your big DCS, where you're talking hundreds or tens of thousands of streams, all the way down to a sensor that just chirps once a day, a few parameters. So it's a coverage of these different scenarios, all the way from big throughput, big hardware, to small throughput, small devices. But then also we expect there's going to be different, say, usability experiences that people want. Our typical OSIsoft customers, what they expect us to deliver is a product that you purchase, you download, you install, you configure, and data flows. On the other end of that spectrum, we have customers that say, no, I want control over how that application behaves, how it connects to my system. Lots of partners do that for us, right? They build their own data connectivity, and that's where we lean towards if you want that development experience, we have that too, and that's where OSIsoft message format comes in. Also, with our open source strategy, we know there's folks out there that want to, like us, experiment with what open source means. So if you want that experience where you don't pay for the software, you download it from GitHub, you build the experience around that. We have that too with our open source strategy with our partner Dynamic. So again, a spectrum of how do you want to consume the product or use the technology is why there's 4 things. So again, I mentioned intentionally overlapping. So if we look at kind of what's the reality across that hardware resources and across that throughput or data stream count needs, kind of starts with PI connectors and interfaces at the top. PI connectors and interfaces, most of them are built to run on a Windows operating system, so they require the hardware resources that's capable of running a Windows OS. And so you kind of think that's kind of the higher end of that spectrum, right? Higher hardware performance requirements due to the operating system, and then higher tag counts as well. Again, the connectors and interfaces we build that talk to these big systems. Stepping down a notch, our new product, as we talked about, kind of functionally an edge historian, we call the Edge Data Store. Its kind of target spot is those places where the PI system isn't a good fit. 1, because it requires a Windows OS, so it limits you on the hardware resources that you have to use. Typically requires an administrator. I like to talk to customers and say, typically how many Pi systems does an administrator, or I mean, how many Pi systems does a single administrator manage? It depends. So what we're doing is building an edge data store to meet these needs where, again, the Pi server isn't a good fit because you need connectivity and data storage out in these locations, out on your remote wells, out on your oil rigs, on your skid in your plant. Open source technology, again, it's covers a much bigger range of capability because, again, it's a development effort that you take on. Doesn't go down to what we think is the smallest of devices because it is a software stack that you download, so it does have an inherent footprint to it. And then all the way at the bottom is OMF, our OSIsoft message format. We like to think of that as our technology that will run on the smallest of devices, and we say that because you have full control over what that application is, how it runs, how it behaves, where it's developed, what tools you use. What OSIsoft message format is a data specification that says if you send an OSIsoft system a data payload that is formatted in the way the specification declares, we don't care where that data is generated. We don't care what that application does. We just care that you are able to send that data to us and we'll consume it as if it were generated by our own products. We'll love it that much. So OSIsoft message format really can cover the gamut. We have partners that say, hey, I want to use now OMF instead of Pi AF-SDK because it's a much simpler way to send data to the system. And the nice thing about the OSIsoft message format is, as we'll see in a few minutes, now 3 of our backend systems, the Pi server, OSIsoft Cloud Services, and our Edge Data Store, support OMF inherently. So what the ideal is, you as your Mr. Developer, Miss Developer out there can build a single application. You can point that application at a Pi system and send it data to our Edge system, to our cloud system. It's the same technology, right? So instead of having to learn the API on the Pi system and the API on the Edge system and the API on the cloud system, one surface, think of it as an abstraction layer to our backend systems. So it can be big, it can be small, you have full control. And then again, development effort there on the vertical scale. Okay, so hopefully it's clear. Pi connectors and interfaces, what Abbas talked about. Hopefully OMF is clear. It's a standard. You adhere to the standard. We love that data as if it were our own. Our open source strategy with Dynamic, this product called FogLamp, that's the free to download and use. So the Edge Data Store, that's to me, of those 4 things, the thing I get the most questions about. Really, what is that? Most people kind of think, oh, it's a small Pi system, right? That's what OSIsoft is. We make the makers of the Pi system. We call ourselves that. It's not. The Edge Data Store is a built from scratch product that we're bringing to market to address these cases where the Pi server isn't a good fit. It will run on a Windows operating system. The Edge Data Store will run on Windows or on Linux because we have scenarios that we need to support both. It will run in these unmanned scenarios where we think at these remote sites like we saw on that slide, there aren't typically people around to babysit the technology. If something happens, we want the Edge Data Store to be robust, resilient. Whenever whatever happened to it is not happening anymore, it just comes back to life and just keeps sending data. So these are the scenarios that we built the Edge Data Store for. And you can see what I've written there. It's really meant for these running on these lightweight, robust devices. But Edge Data Store is complementary. We expect most of the cases around where Edge Data Store will be used will be in these, again, typically remote scenarios running on these small devices. Raspberry Pi is a great example of the type of device we expect an Edge Data Store to run on. That doesn't have a lot of storage. If you specifically think about a Raspberry Pi, it runs a micro SD. That's the storage capability you have. So the Edge Data Store inherently knows how to send its data to a Pi system or send its data to OSIsoft Cloud Services because we don't expect to have the disk capacity to store data for a long time. So the Edge Data Store just knows how to send its data along. So it's complementary to a Pi server, complementary to OSIsoft Cloud Services. Okay, like Abbas showed the roadmap for our data connectivity. Abbas was focused on real-time connectivity. So the Edge Data Store has a roadmap as well. And you'll see as you sit through the product talks today where we've kind of recreated what our roadmap means to us and to you, our customers. Where we talk about the roadmap, we want to tell you these are the things that we're working on right now. These are active development projects. That goes in the column that you see called Developing Now. And then there's, if you see for the Edge Data Store, there's the things that we're developing now. Then there's capabilities that we have on our roadmap, right, that we're planning to do next, subject to change because we're not working on them yet. We say those are considering next. Typically, kind of count on these are the things that we're going to work on after we finish the developing now, but not written in stone. And then the way off things we talk about, that's kind of on our future roadmap. These are the things we want to do, but again, subject to change, subject to business needs, subject to technology changes. So we're moving away from trying to quote specific dates to saying more like, here's the capabilities that we're working on. So you'll see this throughout the day. So here's the specific one for the Edge Data Store. So as we bring the Edge Data Store to market, hopefully if some of you can join us at our PyWorld EMEA user conference in Gothenburg, Sweden, we will have an Edge Data Store released to the market, and it will have this capability, data connectivity through an OMF endpoint, through a native API, and through Modbus Ethernet and OPC UA. So it'll inherently know how to talk to Modbus devices and OPC UA servers. Has data storage, of course, data's persisted. It's really an application platform. It has an API. We expect folks to develop applications to consume data from and write data back to this Edge data store. And then also, as I mentioned, PySystem integration. Then what's coming next, integration with the cloud. And then we really want to work on remote management. We hope for wild success with all of this Edge technology. So giving you a way to easily manage not just dozens, but hundreds and thousands of these instances of our products and technologies in the field, help you do that. And then as we look to the future, more connectivity, we want to be able to provide data calculations, some kind of a visualization experience as well. Okay, so wrapping up here. So you saw on Abbas' slide and you saw this morning how, we talk about the PySystem, assets, plants, enterprise, supplemented with our Edge, pervasive data collection, supplemented on the high end by OSIsoft Cloud Services. So we think about, data infrastructure. Now, what we're doing on the back end is extending that data infrastructure from the edge to the cloud. With the sweet spot being the PySystem in the middle. So from a connectivity standpoint, Abbas covered our Pi connectors and Pi interfaces. They are built to run on a Windows operating system. They are built to communicate with the PySystem. We will continue to develop that capability to meet your kind of on-prem data connectivity needs specifically to a PySystem. What we're doing as well, as we just talked about, supplementing that with our Edge Data Store. Again, think your Edge historian. Our open source strategy with our partner Dynamic and FogLamp, and then OSIsoft message format. So again, that range of what experience do you want, how much development effort, if any, do you want to put into that. These are what we're working on now. Again, complementary to all three systems. And then as Abbas mentioned in his roadmap, providing what I call universal connectivity. So taking the evolution of a Pi interface to a Pi connector to a new data connectivity platform that's compatible with Linux, compatible with these edge scenarios. So if all I need is real-time connectivity, we want to be able to deliver that to you as well on whatever device you want to run it on. Okay, so with that, lots of stuff going on around pervasive data collection. This has been a kind of a 2-year initiative that we've been working on, so lots of work has gone into this. So we have in Golden Gate exhibit hall, Abbas and his team are showing interfaces and connectors, so again, the things that we have available to you today. Then the Yosemite Ballroom, that's really focused on our edge and cloud technologies. So we have 3 booths around our edge and cloud technologies. There's a penny press machine that was alluded to this morning, so it's been instrumented with a lot of IoT type devices. So it's, again, our reflection of how you might instrument a legacy asset with some new sensors and get intelligence out of that, as well as new devices and new opportunities to send data to the edge and to the cloud. We have many partner booths. Several of the partners are early adopters of our Edge Data Store and these other OMF technologies. So Dynamic, they're the keepers of this open source strategy with the product they have, or the technology they have called FogLamp. IPCOS is one of our OSIsoft early adopters of the Edge Data Store. So they're down in the Yosemite. They have a really nice demo where they're doing edge analytics and edge visualization on a vertical beam pump. Our partner Monaco, one of our OMF early adopters, they have a proprietary gateway that they've embedded OMF technology in, that in their little gateway inherently knows how to send data to a PySystem. A really great fit because that's a proprietary operating system they run on their proprietary gateway. Great fit for OMF. No connector or interface that runs on that funny OS that they use. Funny, I say that in a nice way. And then Transpera, another early adopter of our Edge Data Store, they really have a really nice edge to cloud demo where they provision the device and it wakes up and starts sending data. We're kind of redoing this talk on Thursday, the day 3, which is the kind of deeper dive. So I'm going to have several of our partners that are using our Edge Data Store technology come on stage and show you, our audience, how they're using the technology. Our developer team has a development session on our Edge Data Store where they're using OMF and Edge Data Store. And then our partners in Dynamic System has using FogLamp to get your data into Pi. We have Monaco is doing doing a talk on how they've integrated OMF into their device. So lots going on. We're running a few minutes late. We don't have time for questions, but Abbas and I will stay put if you want to come up and specifically address any of your questions or comments. So with that, thank you. I'm out of time, so I appreciate your attention, and yeah, welcome.